just first, are the public safety departments adequately staffed in Lynn today, and is the city a safer one today than it was 5 years ago?
You know, the numbers of public safety have gone up. They're not up where they should be. Everybody wants public safety. But I think we have to look at public safety from a different perspective. Numbers over the years have always gone up, have always gone down. You know, I constantly hear, and I think it's a great thing that the numbers are up. The fire department, 50 new people have been hired. The number might be on or off, but that's not a 50-person net gain. Approximately half of those are by attrition. What we have to look at, a vast majority of the people that have been hired, the non-attrition people, are done through different types of grants. And those grants have a shelf life. After 3 years, and they come in at different times, the city has to actually pick up those costs. So is there a long-range plan so that we don't have to hire these young guys coming in and then all of a sudden face a fiscal crisis where we have to pick everybody up? You have to have a long-range financial plan. But when you're talking about public safety, you can no longer talk just about numbers. We can pull out statistics and see heroin overdoses are up, murders down, rapes up, and they change every single year, and it's the same thing. We have more police on the street, less police on the street. What you have to do, if you want crime to go down systemically and over a long period of time, you have to educate children. You have to increase public education, accessibility, and availability at a younger age. All the statistics show when you start giving education to 3- and 4-year-olds, the long-range crime impacts are down, and you have to give young people jobs. You have to develop economic plans and strategies so that people aren't out committing crimes. You know, that's what you want to do. If you want to fix a city long-term, you have to focus it more than only putting police on the street, even though that's very important. Thank you.
Of course, education is important. Both of my children go to the Lynn Public Schools. I couldn't be more invested in the public schools than that. With regard to public safety, as I said in my opening statement, I have increased the numbers, and no, the gross number was not 50, it was 70. However, the net number is what we all need to be concerned about, and that was just for one department. As I said, we are now at about 190 each for the police and the fire. I plan on keeping that number stable. Councilor Phelan has talked about he'd like to see more, but then he talks about the problems with funding what we already have. I do have a long-term plan for keeping those people employed. I also, with the addition of the police officers, have been able to reinstitute the SROs in the schools, and we've placed them in all of the middle schools. That seems to be the prime spot to get kids before they go down the wrong path. We also have bike patrols, the CLTs, in every sector of the city now, and I have reached out and done some unorthodox things in my capacity as mayor. I have worked very closely with Antonio Gutierrez, who is a former gang member, who can reach out to some of the hardest core gang members in the city and get them to change their ways. I have also worked very closely with Straight Ahead Ministries and Pastor Claire Sullivan, who deals with the problem of reintegration into the society. It's, you know, one thing to find a gang member, convict them, put them in jail. The important thing is, where do they go when they come back? And this ministry helps to get them on the right track so they don't go back to their former life. And lastly, I believe I am the first mayor ever to actually go to Middleton Jail and sit down with a bunch of gang members and find out what makes them tick. I'm not saying I'm a psychologist or anything like that, but sometimes just listening and asking the question, why, can be enormously informative. So I think just by the rates of crime in the city and the number of gang members in the city, I've done a good job effectively with public safety.
Moving on, Mayor, this is for you.
Okay.
What efforts have you made or would you make in a second term to improve the city's image regionally?
Well, with regard to what I have done, we wanted to make better use of what we have here in Lynn. So at the very start of my term, I started working with several dozen local groups in order to put together an application to become one of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts inaugural arts and cultural districts. After a long, hard fight, the Commonwealth awarded 5 of such designations in their first go-round, and I'm proud to say that Lynn was one of them. We were able to highlight such things as the Lynn Museum, the GAR Museum, the Lynn Veterans Memorial Auditorium, the Farmers Market, and all of our small shops, Arts After Hours, the galleries downtown, and so forth, in order to bring some positive attention to the city of Lynn. We also contracted to have a $19,000 video produced and narrated by Terry Bradshaw that highlighted some of the attractions of the city of Lynn. We also invited Chronicle over here, and Chronicle devoted an entire half hour to showing the city of Lynn in a very positive light. In fact, soon after that aired, there was a woman who stopped for directions at a fire station and said that she had come up from Attleboro and just wanted directions because she was impressed and wanted to see what the city was doing, what it was all about. Going forward, I will continue to do what I have been doing, and that is to be a cheerleader for the city of Lynn, to tell people to come down here. If you're a Civil War buff, come. We're having a signature event. We've had it for the last couple of years on the Lynn Commons. If sometime in late May or early June you've been woken up by something that sounds like a howitzer, you probably were, because we were having cannons lit off there. Having most recently, the Veterans Parade. I'm sure many of you attended the Veterans Parade. That was 2 years in the making, and I think it exemplifies what we can do to show Lynn in a good light.
You know, I think it's great to cheerlead for the city. Pretty much every elected official and candidate, I think, cheerleads for the city. However, what we really need to do is improve the image of the city. And that starts in the mayor's office. That starts with going places on time. That starts with being the leader of the city. That starts with, I hear about the Lynn Commons. People don't like to hear the negative. I think the Lynn Commons are a disgrace. I think they're a disgrace. The city council bonded money to fix the bandstand and the other structure. But who here has walked down the Lynn Commons lately? Probably not too many. You know, I walked down there. I've walked in the Boston Commons. Shrubbery, trees. You know, it's gorgeous. We've neglected it over a period of time. If we want to improve our image, you know, it's not about videos. It's about improving the infrastructure of the city really for a long period of time. You know, I know that this is, you know, borderline blasphemy, but when you get right down to it, it's a needed service in the city of Lynn, the shelter in My Brother's Table. I'm an advocate. We need that service. But the location of the shelter in My Brother's Table is not the best location for the improvement of downtown. We have to find a better location. We have to find a location that will provide better services for the shelter in My Brother's Table that will improve downtown. Quincy Market Faneuil Hall does not have the Pine Street Inn right next to it when they're trying to attract people. Where can we put it where they can get better services, where there's good access, but at the same time we can develop what we're looking to do in downtown? And people are afraid to talk about it. I compare downtown Lynn and I look at downtown Salem, and people get mad at me when I say, downtown Salem's happening. You know, why can't we be like downtown Salem? Development people don't want to hear it. We should find out what they're doing right. They have outdoor cafes. They have a lot of things that we could have.
Do you have a rebuttal, Mayor Kennedy?
First of all, the City of Lynn has received a 6-figure grant to improve the Lynn Commons. So while the bond money does provide some of the money for improving the Commons, and I think that one might be going toward the rehabilitation of the grandstand, but we have other improvements for the Commons as well. There are going to be walking markers along so that people can measure their path when they're taking a walk or doing a jog. We're replacing the fencing with period fencing as opposed to the fencing that's up now. Additionally, we're fixing the lighting with period lighting that will be brighter than the lights that we have there currently, which will be making it safer. And with regard to my brother's table and the shelter as well, the overnight shelter, they are in a building called the Multi-Service Center. If we're going to blame anybody for the location of that, we have to blame our predecessors because they bought that property from the federal government, a HUD property, and that property must be used for homeless services until almost the end of this decade. So we're stuck with that right now. And just for the record, I've been a member of the board of directors of my brother's table in the past. So I truly believe in them.
1 minute rebuttal, Councilor Green.
Thank you. That's inaccurate. The lease ends next year in the spring, and the federal restrictions end next year in the spring. So there is an opportunity here if somebody is willing to take a chance, has some guts, and really wants to change the future direction of the city.
Thank you. This will be for Mayor Kennedy. Can I ask first? With the Mayoral School project's approval, what school or schools do you want next on the list for renovation or replacement? And have any schools in the city been neglected for too long?
Oh, most certainly. We have a very aging infrastructure for the schools. Aborn, in fact, is well over 100 years old. There are a couple of other schools that have reached that milestone as well. I know I went to Brickett's 100th anniversary a year or so ago. We do have a plan. We have put together a committee to study what properties will be renovated or replaced next. The next one on the list, and this has been on the list for quite a while now, is the Pickering Middle School. My children both went to Pickering Middle School, and I can tell you that I always thought it had to be amongst the worst in the city until I took a tour of Marshall. So I think that the MSBA got it right, and Kathy Latham got it right in asking that Marshall Middle School be attended to first. But we do have a committee that's going to be headed by Rick Starbird to look at a long-term plan for the replacement of schools. And so far, and I am tending to agree with this, Pickering will be next in the pipeline, followed by Cobbett, followed by Tracy. Those schools are bursting at the seams. They are unsightly. They are being asked to educate far more children than they were designed to educate. And we are going to have to make sure that in the next 20 to 25 years, we have an ongoing system of putting schools in the pipeline as one is coming out. So now with the approval of Marshall having been concluded, we will start to work on the Pickering School.
Thank you. It's great we're going to work on Pickering. However, by the time Marshall is done and Pickering is started, if we ever get those funds, you're going to be looking at 7-8 years at the very minimum. So what do we do with our crumbling schools now? Anybody that has children in the vast majority of the schools, there's upwards of $21 million worth of repairs that are needed. And I know we put some money in piecemeal here and there. What I'm proposing, what I proposed at the education meeting, the city of Lynn owns a piece of property on Route 1 in Lynnfield. In Lynnfield. It abuts and goes around the Fat Cactus, the Naked Fish. On both sides. There's a billboard on one of the sides now. I have a title search and an opinion from the law department that it's not Lynn Woods. If it was Lynn Woods, I would not be in favor of it. A couple of years ago, there was a proposal by the town of Lynnfield to try to land swap it because they knew how valuable it was. We see all these car dealerships up there on one side, a vacant parcel, then this property, and then another vacant parcel, which is the Lynn property. And it goes back actually 75 acres. We don't have to do that because there's a power line easement that runs through it that really cuts what would be actually developable. What I'm proposing is the land that's on Route 1 in Lynnfield, not Lynn and not Lynn Woods, that we either sell, lease, or develop. Have a recurring income stream in a revolving account solely to take care of our schools that are falling down. Instead of just hearing the rhetoric, oh, I'm going to fight for more money, schools are 100 years old and nothing's happening. Now, Nobody heard any of this. I brought it up at 2 debates, and the mayor said something about it. Oh, I know about that too. We didn't hear anything else about it until I brought it up at the next debate and said I know about that too. But I'm putting that proposal forward in my administration to take care of those schools, and we should do it.
The town manager of Linfield came to me a month after I took office and was trying to purchase that land. And the simple answer to that is, why would I sell a parcel of property in a down real estate market? That doesn't make any sense. Thank you. And with regard to the money that I have put into the infrastructure in the schools, there was about $1.7 million budgeted in fiscal year, I think this is for fiscal year 14, but certainly for fiscal year 13, to provide some needed improvements to the infrastructure of the schools, asbestos removal, boiler replacements, facade repointing, and so forth. I put over $1 million into the schools to have safety features enhanced, to have cameras at every school, to improve the external doors so that they weren't easily jarred open, to have internal locks put on the doorways so that the classrooms could isolate themselves in the event of a situation that required everybody to shelter in place. And lastly, $400,000 given from the city to consolidate the school administration building at Bennett Street.
Would you like to rebut, Councilman?
I would. I just find it interesting that we're looking to develop the waterfront because everything's great and it's hot right now to develop the waterfront, but for whatever reason the real estate market's down and we can't sell this. Last 2 debates when I brought this issue up, first time we're hearing about ever, a meeting 4 years ago with someone from the town of Linfield. Right now, all real estate developers will tell you the market is hot, it's taking off, rates are low, and if you're looking to do something, now's the time to do it. This is an opportunity that I became aware of. It's a revenue stream that we've never had before. It's creative, it's innovative thinking. It's not money that we'll have to use for salaries. It'll be something for capital expenditures. So if it runs out or the interest isn't there over a period of time, the estimated value on each acre is $750,000 to $1 million. It is a new revenue stream that the City of Lynn hasn't had, and we can take care of our children.
I skipped this question earlier because you both alluded to the South Harbor property. But if I can ask, is it truly unrealistic to think that that should have been developed quickly, especially given their private parcels? And is everything being done that can possibly be done to try and get shovels to the ground on new development, where the power lines were relocated? I think Councilor Pam goes first. Sure. I'm
going to just again explain the economic development program that I'd like to put in place. The biggest thing is we have to give new incentives. We have to make people want to come to the City of Lynn and develop. How do you make them want to come? You have to make it financially advantageous for them to come. You have to make it doable for them. You have to make sure that they have access to capital, that they have money available to them through local lending people that they can come to. My proposal, which has never been done before in the City of Lynn or any place that I know, which if we let people take our money, your money, and they hold our money in a bank, which they're making millions of dollars on, that they have to invest back in Lynn. Invest Lynn. Make capital available to developers at a low interest rate so that they will come here and mandate that they come here and not look someplace else. That is innovative thinking. That's different thinking. That's something I've always done on the City Council. I've never been afraid to push the envelope. I don't have a mayoral record. Never been the mayor. But I can be a difference maker because I can bring things like this to the table, attract people, and develop that waterfront. Whatever we're doing now is not working. Thank you.
I've mentioned it several times before. We're talking specifically about the South Harbor.
We are.
Okay. That there are parties that are interested in building a billion with a B dollar project down there. I received an email from them right around the time probably a couple of days before September 13th, because I had been informed that they were going to be closing on that property on September 13th. This is an international transaction. It involves international banks. There is a language barrier that has to be overcome in all of this as well. In that email, and I don't have it with me, but I remember, I didn't know if this was just a typo or if they had something going on in October, but they said in either late September or early November, they would be coming to meet with me, and they expected to have shovels in the ground by January 2014. It's really difficult to stand up here and not divulge exactly what is going on. I have shown one of your reporters, Thor Jurgensen, the email that I got, so he can understand that I'm not just pulling this out of thin air. It is an international transaction, many different parts between the banks and the analysts who wanted to see if it would be profitable, and the different lawyers on two different sides of an ocean that make it an extremely complicated deal. But if I am to believe their letter, and I have no reason to doubt their letter, they will be coming here during the fall, and they do expect to have shovels in the ground by January of 2014, and I'm hoping that comes to pass.
Councilor Rebel.
The owner of that property, on that deal, I speak to him 5 times a week, every week. He's a good friend of mine, probably for the past 2 years. I met the Korean organization in the mayor's office with the former mayor. That's how long they've been working on this. When he read in the newspaper that, I think the quote was something to the extent that I'm hopeful that something's going to happen September 13, attributed to the mayor. He was absolutely furious. He was furious because there was a confidentiality agreement that nothing was supposed to happen. He was furious that that comment in the paper would jeopardize the deal. The deal has since come and gone. You know, they're still moving it. And, you know, I talked to him yesterday. And I don't know where this information is coming from, but that's highly unlikely.
Mayor Rebel.
There was nothing confidential about giving a date. However, there is something breaching the confidentiality when you tell the nationality of the people who are interested in it because they didn't want their identities known.
My next message is for, it's a question for Mayor Kennedy. Answer this first, sorry. Mayor, we all know that you've taken a lower salary than your predecessor, last 2 predecessors. Regardless of what becomes of the court case surrounding the pay for Lynn's mayor, both you, Mayor, and Councilor Phelan are on record saying the job of mayor merits a 6-figure salary. Do you believe, again, regardless of the pending court decision, that the mayor's salary should include an education incentive benefit?
Absolutely not. I don't think any of our jobs should include an education incentive benefit. We should be, and I'll speak to elected officials as opposed to any of the department heads and so forth. When people elect a mayor, they elect a mayor because they believe that that person is the right person to lead their community. I believe there's a town or a city out in western Massachusetts, I think it might even be Pittsfield, where an 18 or 19-year-old was elected as mayor of his city. That person couldn't even possibly have an education incentive. But for those of you in the audience who don't know how the education incentive works, no matter what the base salary is, this is the way it's been construed in the past for the mayor's salary, no matter what the base salary is, if you have a bachelor's degree, you get 20% above that salary each and every year that you're mayor. That increases our longevity costs, that increased the retirement costs ultimately. If you have a master's degree, both Councilor Phelan and I have JDs, Juris Doctors, we're, under the way it's been done in the past, we would be entitled to 25% additional over the base salary of the mayor's pay. And again, without making it too complicated, through the years, the mayor's base pay has been purported to be raised by various negotiations with local union 3147. I went right back to the rule of the law. $82,500 is my salary. That is what I have taken every year. It's ridiculously low, but that is what it is, and that's what I have taken. On the other hand, Councilor Phelan and the city councilors, I have asked them to show some support for this and to do what the ordinance says, which is to take 15% of what the mayor takes. And they've gone through some fuzzy math. I think that was a phrase from the Al Gore, George Bush era. But they've done some fuzzy math, and they've come up with a salary for themselves that is 18.5 of what I make and not 15.
Councilor Phelan?
You know, regardless of how somebody says something, how convincing they may be, how often they say something, it may sound believable, actions speak louder than words. Integrity is still important in our business. Honesty is still important in our business. Fuzzy math, every single year, the city council's salary of $15,000 or $14,000 is sent to the city council from the mayor. The mayor, she sets the budget. She sends us our salary every single year. It has been the same every single year. All she has to do is cut it. And nobody can do anything about it. That's the power of the mayor's office. So to stand up here and say, the council's doing fuzzy math, the council has no say. You can cut it yourself. Just cut it, if that's what you think. Second, the mayor stands up here and talks about, I disagree with the educational incentive. Maybe so, but that's a department head contractual negotiation. The mayor negotiates the contract. In the mayor's term, the mayor renegotiated that contract and left the educational incentive in the contract. So standing up here convincingly telling you, that's wrong, don't do it, but she does it on the other hand. And the council's doing fuzzy math, but she's the one that sets those monies. Actions speak louder than words. Thank you.
First of all, as I stated, I was talking about, for the purposes of your question, I was talking about elected officials and not department heads. Secondly, I have tried for 4 years. I don't initiate the city council's budget. They send it to me. I have tried to cut that budget. Councilor Phelan has refused to cut that budget. Not that line item, but items in the budget, and he keeps sending it back to me with the same amount of money. And in a $266 million budget, it's really not just worth it to go through that over what amounts to a few $1,000s. However, I can tell you right now, it's very easy for a counselor to refuse to get as much pay as they're entitled, or what they claim they are entitled to. And I will tell you, I did that, so I know it's possible. And I'm calling on Councilor Phelan right now, with the knowledge that there is an ordinance, 15% of my salary is their salary. I'm calling on him right now to pledge that the council will take that dollar amount until the court decides whether it's proper or not.
Thank you. You know, again, the council, she's standing here, with all due respect, saying, you won't cut your budget. The mayor cuts the budget. The mayor, if the mayor wants to cut our salaries from $15,000 to $14,000 with the stroke of a pen, she could do it today, tomorrow. I don't set our budget. Department heads don't set the budget. It's disingenuous. Thank you.
Questions from one another, and they'll be a 2-minute answer and a 2-minute response.
How many questions
Okay.
are we getting? Because once you said one, and then once you said...
Right. It depended on the time, and right now, we have about 9 minutes left. So I tell you what, Mayor, I'm going to give you the first question to Councilor Phelan, and Councilor, you'll have 2 minutes to answer.
putting all the bickering about the department, who sets the money, who cuts the money, etc. I am going to ask Councilor Phelan for a yes or a no answer. From here on, until we get that decision from the state court as to what the mayor's salary should be and how it should be calculated, will he pledge to abide by the Lynn ordinance that says that the city council gets 15% of the mayor's pay, thereby requiring all councilors to take 15% of $82,500 for the duration until that decision comes down? Yes or no? That's my question number one.
Well, with all due respect, this is still America, and I don't have to answer that yes or no. I don't speak for the rest of the council. I don't speak for the rest of the council. And if I speak for myself, and you know, if we want to play political gamesmanship or showmanship, and that is going to make the mayor happy, and that is going to make the mayor think that I'm a man of integrity, you know, because I think integrity is still important here, and I think honesty is still important, I'll take that reduction, even though I think it's a political game and it's a ploy just to sound fine. So that's, I have no problem with that at all.
Do you have a response, a quick response at all? Or move on?
Well, I'm saying he will, but he's the one that permits the city council to have salaries that are... What? I'm saying, all I'm asking is for the city council president, as the leader of the city council, to have the city council abide by the law as it's written.
Councilor?
I speak for myself. I speak for myself. I don't cut other people's budgets.
It's your opportunity to ask the mayor a question.
What do you think is potentially the most important issue facing Ward 1 and possibly the entire city over the next 2 to 3 years?
There are many, many different issues, but I'll give you the one that seems to be going on right now and is ongoing, and that's the Wyoming Square redevelopment program. With the changes in the configurations. That's not me. Wyoming Square has always been a terrible place as far as traffic. With the way the roads come into one another, with the way the lanes merge. Having this program that we've put into place over the next couple of years, which is going to change the traffic patterns, is going to make it a lot safer in Wyoming Square. Furthermore, the Wyoming Square businesses really need to have some place for their patrons to park. So the city has purchased from the Off-Street Parking Commission the Wyoming Square parking lot. We're going to be doing a major renovation of that. It's going to add additional spaces. It's going to be automated. It's going to keep the patrons of those businesses safe and give them more places to park while they patronize that business.
I disagree. I think the biggest issue facing Ward 1 and potentially the city of Lynn is Union Hospital. Over the past several years, if you're paying attention, Union Hospital has substantially reduced their acute beds, their in-house anesthesia clinic closure, endoscopy closure, general neurology services, closed their heart clinic failure, moved to Salem. They're closing their institutional review board, outpatient physical therapy, closure of the cardiac rehab. I recently met with a group of doctors, and Partners Healthcare says that Union Hospital is losing, the Partners Healthcare is losing $23 million a year, and they're blaming it on Union Hospital because this group of doctors said the reason that's happening is they've taken away all the money-making facilities that are there, that their long-range plan is going to be make it a long-range psychiatric facility and closing the ER. I think before that happens, the city of Lynn has to put a panel together, has to begin negotiations with the CEO of Partners Healthcare and make sure that that doesn't happen. Because if we're asleep at the switch, it's going to be the biggest thing to hit the city of Lynn now. We can't wait for things to happen. We have to make things happen. And that's what's happening now, and we're asleep at the switch, and nobody even knows about it.
May I give you 1 minute rebuttal if you want? rebuttal, and then we'll go to closing statements.
All right. Again, Councilor Phelan makes it sound like I'm sitting in my office not meeting with anybody. I've had several meetings, both at my office and at the Union Hospital campus with the management of Union Hospital. I am regularly in touch with them. They have assured me that they are not leaving the city of Lynn. I've heard this rumor for many years. In fact, it started long before I even became mayor. Union Hospital is still there, and if I have anything to do with it, it will continue to be there for years to come.
Okay. Councilor, you have nothing more to add there. Okay. Mayor, if you would, I believe Councilor Phelan opened first, so if you would,
Okay.
your closing statement first.
Well, thank you all for being so polite and attentive. I'm sorry we were limited to kind of a narrow range of topics here tonight. So I think I will just conclude the evening for me by saying that I have led you, and I have led you well over the last 4 years. I have tried to do things differently. I have tried to do things always with the best interest of the city in mind. It might be something as little as instituting reverse 911, which we never had before I took office. It might be something as grand as putting the SROs back into our middle schools and returning our CLTs to the streets to work on quality of life issues. It could be something as little as a dog park, and it can be something as big as being one of the biggest proponents of the revival of downtown Lynn. It can be something as small as fighting about a girl's right to wear a slogan on a t-shirt, and it can be something as large as inviting people from all over this region to join in celebrating our veterans. I have accomplished a lot in 4 years. I think I have earned your respect, and I think I have earned your wish, I would hope, to continue as your mayor for the next 4 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to share my vision. I keep, hearing people in the other campaigns saying, well, taxes haven't gone up in the last 4 years. Well, they have. Commercial taxes, $740, three-family, $533, two-family, $697, and single families up $200. While at the same time, the residential tax rate has gone from $1,274 in fiscal year 09 to $1,693 today. At the same time, property values are going up. I get frustrated when I look at education. And I hear people on the other side saying, well, we increased the education funding this year from $115 million to $118 million. Except what we're leaving out of the equation is Chapter 70 educational funding increased $7.7 million. $7.7 million, and $3 million went to education. And the other went to the city side. I don't think that's right. I think that's wrong. I'm different. Since the mayor has been in office through the beginning of May of this year, she's either been late or missed almost 20% of the school committee meetings. Gone to one EDIC board meeting in 4 years. By her own admission at one of the most recent debates, she indicated, she specifically said, I'll be the first to tell you that I don't come in by 9 in the morning. And those are differences between me. My administration will have feeling hours. I'll be there at 7:30 in the morning. If people of the city of Lynn want to meet their mayor, they can walk into City Hall before work and meet their mayor. I'll have roving mayor office, so we bring the mayor's office to different parts of the community. My administration will implement a multifaceted economic development plan that will substantially increase development, create more jobs, provide more opportunities for our youth, and build safe neighborhoods and infrastructure for long-range success. Can I just finish up with one thing? The most important thing of my administration is I, for the first time in the city's history, will open year-round schools for pre-K, for 3- and 4-year-olds that aren't lucky enough to win the lottery.